We're in the middle of a crazy crunch right now. We have a deadline tomorrow, delivering our alpha to the publisher. So I was asked to come in here, and I took some of the guys from my team with me to do a quick freelance presentation of what we do and why we do teams the way we do, which we think is very unique compared to other game developers, and how we actually make that work. This picture was recently finalized, and it symbolizes perfectly why we exist today, why I are in video games business. Because it consists of all of the heroes from our childhood, or most of us older gamers that's been gamers for 20 plus years know pretty much all of these guys. And I'm going to come back to this picture at the end of the presentation. First of all, my name is Frederik, and I started a video game company called Interceptor approximately 3 years ago. We started officially later, but we started off as a group of modders, basically. The way I got into the games industry was a bit different from most others. I didn't take any specific education towards gaming. I was a hardcore, I'd like at least to think I was a hardcore gamer as a kid, and I spent most of my days modding. That was what I did every day when I came home from school. I was modding video games and being part of different modding communities, mostly, particularly the Duke Nukem 3D community, because that was just awesome. When I started wondering about what I should do when I grew up, video games were not an option. I did not believe that video games were possible in Denmark as they were in the United States. Then some great examples showed up. After the Amiga days, the golden Amiga days, where we had some really cool games in Denmark, IO showed up and showed everyone that they could do AAA in Denmark, which was previously thought to be impossible. And that kind of re-sparked my interest. I never became what many call an indie gamer. I wasn't really that interested in the indie side of gaming. I was purely interested in the AAA. I wanted it to be possible to create AAA, and I know that's also what the same philosophy Zero Point had when they started off with Interstellar Marines, that they wanted to do AAA in an indie-spirited company. And that was the same goal for us. In 2010, I started working on a mod project, which was called Duke Nukem Reloaded. We shut it down, and that was basically the end back then for my career in video games. And that was really depressing. I actually got a depression by it, and the whole thing, it was absolutely terrible. Then I got this email, all of a sudden, a Facebook message, all of a sudden, a few months later. This was around September 2012 from Apogee. And first of all, Apogee, they don't exist anymore. They're called 3D Realms. It's not Apogee anymore. Apparently Apogee had resurrected. One of the previous 3D Realms guys had resurrected the Apogee brand, and some of the old IPs were transferred. And he had seen some screenshots of Duke Reload, and he wanted me to work on a new game. And I had two choices. Well, actually three, but two that were interesting. We worked on Shadow Warrior, which was another 3D Realms game, actually the last in-house developed 3D Realms title. After that, Max Payne and Prey, they were co-developed, but the fully last complete in-house developed game was Shadow Warrior. We could do a sequel to that, or we could do Rise of the Triad. Rise of the Triad is a very obscure title. Rise of the Triad was released in '95 and was actually called Wolfenstein 2 Rise of the Triad. And it was supposed to be the sequel to Wolfenstein. And since id Software and Apogee did Wolfenstein 3D together, they decided, and Spirit of Destiny, they decided to do Wolfenstein 2 together. But on the sideline, id was working on Doom. And when they looked at Rise of the Triad and looked at their own game Doom, they quickly realized that this Rise of the Triad game that Apogee is doing does not look as cool as our own Doom game. It was using Wolfenstein engine and so on. So they scrapped the game, renamed it to Rise of the Triad, completely rebuilt it, released in '95. It revolutionized the genre. It was the first game that had mouse look, rocket jumping. It had what they call now ludicrous GIFs, which was basically their version of dismemberment. It was a completely revolutionary title and released 1 year before Doom 3D, completely under the radar. There's a very, if anyone in here, does anyone know Rise and Triumph, the original? Okay, that's okay. Half of them is my team, but but yeah, it is a very obscure title. If you know Rise and Triumph, that's really cool because it was a revolutionary title, and that's why we chose to do Rise and Triumph. So here came the challenge. I had to create a company now. I had a license to do a game called Rise and Triumph. It had to be AAA. It had to be able to compete with any other game out there, Call of Duty and whatever the young people play nowadays. And I was in my one-bedroom apartment in Herning and had no money, had no nothing. So what did we do? Like we had no team. Like half of the people working on this free Duke project wanted to work on Duke, not this obscure Rise and Triumph game. So most of them left. We were a little core team left of around 8 people. And then a fan contacted me, and this was again in the first days of Kickstarter. Kickstarter hadn't had its big breakthrough yet, so that was not an option we thought about. A fan contacted me and said, "Hi, do you guys need money?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Okay, what can you do? We can do Shadow Warrior Rise and Triumph. I pick Rise and Triumph, how much do you need?" And that was the conversation. And apparently it was a fan of Duke Reloaded, the one that donated the most. And we used the donation money to run our server costs and ship prices and stuff for the contests we had for fans and so on. He wanted to fund Rise and Triumph. He was a huge fan of Apogee 3D Realms. He loved Rise and Triumph and Duke Nukem. He wanted to fund the whole game, everything, marketing and so on.
Wow.
And of course I asked him, and I said, that's going to be really hard. But that was the deal. Take it or leave it. So what do you do? I guess everyone here would take it and just run with it. It's better, you know, if you really want to work with games, you just grab the chance there is, even though it's almost no money to do at least a AAA time game. So I had to figure out how do I do it, make a AAA title game with a big team. By the way, we had 9 months to finish the game as well. So how do we do this? I decided to take my core team of these 8 people, and we got on Skype and we talked back and forth. So they were all on board. I asked them for salaries and so on. And the key thing to note here is that they're all working from home. None of them are from Denmark. What can I offer them in salary that will have the luxury of them working at home and be with their wives whenever they want? They can go with their kids on vacation. They can do all of that. All they have to do is deliver a product on a deadline. Otherwise, they can work whenever they want. If you keep that in mind, you'll be able to pay less. And quite frankly, I'd be able to, you know, if an employer asks me, do you want 30K if a month, you want 20K a month. If you get the 20K, you can do whatever you want again. You never have to meet in at work. I would probably take the 20K to have that freedom and that motivation to do whatever I want. So that was kind of the motivation here. So if we kept the team virtual, we could pay less salaries, but still good salaries compared to what many others got. We had a guy from Poland who told me he got $500 a month for a full-time job. We could pay him 4 or 5 times that, and that would still be way less than what we would have to pay in Denmark. So we were 8 people. We started contacting a few different of the old Duke Reloaded guys. Offered them salaries. I made a budget, stuff I was good at, making budgets and making diagrams and organizational charts and all the boring stuff. And we ended up making it all match down to the cent that we could make this game in 9 months if we just crunched through 24 hours. Everyone would be happy and they would get a decent salary. And we started working on the game. We were a team size of 42 people that were supposed to work for 9 months in this game. And from day 1, we went completely insane with crunching. 5 months after we started on this exact date, we revealed the game at QuakeCon with both a full trailer, fully playable at QuakeCon, and the first game ever to be revealed at QuakeCon that was not an id Software game. And that again goes back to that it's Apogee and 3D Realms. Later we revealed the game at QuakeCon, and that was a great experience. The trailer was extremely gory and eyeballs all over the screen. It was very insane and very gross, exactly as Rise and Triumph needed to be. And we had it playable on the floor. And I sat until 4 a.m. the night before on the floor, and we didn't have a working build. And since we were a virtual team, it's me in Dallas at QuakeCon, and the rest is all around the world. I had a programmer on the phone, and it was in the middle of the night for him, and he tried sending builds over the internet over multiple countries back and forth in order to get something to work. And then we just gave up and said, okay, we'll have to deal with that. And magically, the whole thing worked. We had no crashes. So that was the reveal of Rise of the Triad. And that was in August 2012, 5 months after we started development on the project. 4 months later, we found out that we're far from done with this game. And it's not possible to do a AAA game of this size. If you want to do first person shooter, it has to be 8 hours, it has to have all the content and multiplayer and the DLC and dedicated servers and all, you want all that stuff that fans expect from a game. So that was not possible. I contacted our investor and asked for more money. He decided to pay more money for it, and we continued. It took, and we're still proud of this number, it took 18 months for us to release and develop and deliver and do our own marketing and PR for a full AAA game, considering what kind of team we were. 42 people spread all around the world. And how could we do this then? I'd like to believe that it was because of our team and how our team worked together. Because we worked together in a very, very untraditional way. The core goal was to build an online system that worked like a real office, but without limitations that a real office has. And when you work online, you often think, how can we make this as real as possible? How can I call someone on Skype? How can we have video? We can type to each other. Something that gets as close to sitting in front of each other as possible. But we want to break the barrier of what is not possible when you're sitting in front of each other. And one of the things that's not possible is you can't look over the shoulder of everyone all the time to see what they're doing. If our 3D character artist, Chris, wanted to show me a character, I would have to go to his computer and see, oh, that looks cool, and so on. I have to go back. He can't tell everyone at the studio to look at his character all the time and say, oh, that looks cool, can you change that and fix that? We made a system that made that possible to do 24 hours a day, where everyone could constantly look, if they wanted to, and give feedback on everything, or ask for it. So if Chris, our lead character, wanted every 10 minutes to show all 42 people his character and get feedback, what do you think about this gun, or this boot, or this glove? He could do that, and instantly he would get response and feedback on it. And he could continue to do that all day, and everyone would continue doing that. And everyone got so much feedback and so much experience, and saved so much time by being able to just sit in front of their work and get instant feedback from everyone all the time, whenever they requested it. So that was the core goal of this. And the bigger goal was to make everyone motivated all the time. And to eliminate motivation, this was one of the tools. Because when you work on a low salary, you work from home, and you don't have to get up at 7 in the morning to meet them at work, then you need to be motivated in order to deliver something to the deadlines, even deliver something before the actual deadlines. So this motivation was so extremely important to keep for everyone all the time. And we could motivate with money. Quite frankly, many people believe that money motivates people, but it's actually not money that motivates people. It's doing whatever you love to do, and usually you spend money doing what you want to do. You know, people spend money to go to 3D Academy because they want to do 3D. It should be the other way around. The 3D Academy should pay them to do 3D and then hire and you get them into jobs. But you know, that's just how the world works. So they all got to do something they love to do without any barriers whatsoever that they would have in a normal working space. And at the same time, they could be with their families and do whatever they wanted to do, and go to the movies and all that. So that was the reason why we could develop Rise of the Triad in 18 months. We released Rise of the Triad in July 31st, 2013 at QuakeCon, the year after QuakeCon. And it was, for us, for this first game, it was a massive success. Established Interceptor and an office here in Aalborg down by the harbor. So transitioning this virtual team into a physical studio was the next big challenge. We had funding, we had a new game we wanted to do, which was basically a dream project for us. But we still wanted to run this company as we ran it with Rise of the Triad. Because if we were to give people, every 40 plus people on the team, the same salary as if they would all live in Denmark, the game would cost 20, 30 million kroner to develop. And that's That's really hard in Denmark. On some points I agree that it's hard and almost impossible to do AAA in Denmark because no one is willing to put that much money into a project. But if you can do a game that has the same quality and the same audience and can sell the same amount of copies for the same price, but 10 times cheaper, then it's a reality. And then you can self-fund later. So how did we do that in Denmark? We decided that we would fly in the 4 or 5 leads on the team. The art director, the lead coder, we've got the lead animator down there now. So we wanted to fly them to Denmark and relocate them to Denmark, and so they could live here in Aalborg and run the virtual studio together with me and my partner. So we flew our art director. He moved from England to Denmark. All of this happened 9 months ago. We had our lead coder, Greg. He moved from Poland to Denmark. All the leads basically transferred to this little office in Aalborg, where we're now sitting 6, 7 people, and we all have our little cluster of virtual team members that have all stayed together. Most, say 89% of the team has stayed together for 3 years now, and none of them is leaving. People even get big job offers that they basically declined. It's all bright stories, but when they're actually there, they don't get that kind of freedom that they want. They want to keep the freedom they have with their modding projects, but they want to be paid for it, and they only want to work on games they love. So we managed to get everyone on board for this next project. We think that it was probably the best move. That's ultimately what everyone wants to end up doing, is their own IP. So it was just a bit earlier than we expected it to be. We wanted to do a few other IP licensed games before we started doing our own. But we started working on Bombshell, which we're working on now, and we're reaching alpha now. So about teams themselves, if I have to give some good advice, just on the finishing line about working in teams, if any of you want to work in AAA, it's really hard. But if you want to start up a game project, I suggest going for the modding communities. That is where people are, and that is where people are motivated to work on games. And I hope this story about how we got to work in video games is a good example of that it is possible to do AAA, and we're still trying, and we're not giving up. And hopefully when we release Bombshell, everything's going to go well. So that's basically my presentation. Anyone have any questions? Yes?
Are you looking for people?
Are you looking for people? We have people knocking our door pretty much every day asking that question. Yes and no, it depends on how good you are. But yeah, we're always looking for people. We're currently 41 on the team right now. If you're talented, just drop by. We don't believe in here's my resume and this is all the schools I've been. The only thing we believe in is if you come in and you show something awesome, then you probably have a pretty high chance of getting hired with us. So just drop by the studio and say hi. Anyone else?
How do you manage people's assignments when you are not in a physical room and they work at different hours, and some will go out, some will go on hours?
So the studio is basically open 24/7. We have our system is basically built around a forum structure in different subsections. Each subsection is its own milestone. We have vertical slice, prototyping, conceptual, alpha, beta, and so on. Under each of those, there are sub-forums for each department: character design, art, animation, coding, and so on. And each of those subsections have their own tasks, which are linked up to our internal task management system. Each task is decided together with a lead. So, for instance, if our art director Chris wants a character made, he grabs a form of characters and say, "This is the character. How long does it take for you to make that with 70,000 triangles, 4K textures, and so on?" "Oh, it will take me 6-8 weeks. Then they set up the tasks together, talk about all the requirements and so on. And then every single day this artist posts new comments to his own thread that everyone else in the team then basically gives feedback on. Everyone from system administrators to community managers and so on, everyone gives feedback on this. And then the task is done when the task is done. And if he needs extension, he contacts Chris and say, "Wow, the shotgun is really awesome, but it takes 2 weeks longer." And then Chris talks to me and we figure out how does that fit in to our overall timeline. But it's actually that simple. So it's basically built around what everyone who doesn't work in games, or professionally already know, which is basically a forum structure. Not any advanced big CMS system and project management that is too confusing to navigate. Anyone else? All right, that was pretty much it.